on board with clones? Apparently, people are cloning their own pets. Dog cloning is now a hot commodity among those that can afford such a bizarre luxury. Apparently, these scientists and researchers are on board. They might also have some cautionary tales to share. Here are the top 10 animal cloning experiments that went horribly wrong. Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have Dolly the sheep. We had to start this list off with Dolly today because she really set the stage for everything on this list to come. You may have heard of Dolly the sheep before, and that is because she made history in 1996 when she was born. This is because she was the very first mammal to be cloned from an adult somatic cell. The process of cloning to create her involved nuclear transfer from a cell taken from the mammary gland. Basically, they transferred the nucleus from the adult cell into an unfertilized premature egg that had its nucleus removed, and boom, cloned sheep. This was huge for the scientific community because of the fact that it not only showed that cloning can be successful in mammals, but also because it showed that a cloned organism can be produced from a mature cell from a specific body part. While Dolly made history, she also sadly only lived a relatively short life. She ended up being euthanized just before her 7th birthday because of the fact that she had a progressive lung disease as well as arthritis, both of which are said not to be linked to her cloning origins. I guess it's kind of cool that Dolly existed, and the fact that we have these scientific abilities is amazing, but there's also something pretty ominous about it. I just hope we use these powers to do things like bringing back extinct animals, maybe, rather than some weird mad scientist type of stuff. In our number 9 spot today, we have Samrupa. After the birth of Dolly the sheep, scientists everywhere began trying their hand at cloning, and that is when Samrupa was born. Back in 2009, Samrupa was born in India and was a Murrah buffalo, which is known as being the best known milking buffalo, since these animals can be capable of producing 35 kilograms of milk a day. The birth of Samrupa marked a breakthrough in the country because it put India on the map as one of the few countries at the time who had the capabilities to clone, and this was all done using a new at the time landmark technique which was called hand-guided cloning. The scientists who helped to create Samrupa worked on the calf for 4 years, so it's clear that they were all very excited about its birth. Unfortunately, however, shortly after Samrupa's birth, things went seriously wrong. Just 5 days after birth, Samrupa unfortunately succumbed to a lung infection and passed away. While the scientists weren't able to save the animal, it is very clear that its birth and short life helped scientists in remarkable ways that went on to inform them in future experiments and projects. In our number 8 spot today, we have the Pyrenean ibex. The Pyrenean ibex is an animal that went extinct around 2000. In a horrible turn of events, the last one was a female named Celia, and she was killed in an awful falling tree incident. A subspecies of the Spanish ibex, the Pyrenean ibex were native to the Pyrenees Mountains on the border of Spain and France. Back in the medieval ages, their population was reduced drastically to an endangered level. This is due to 2 things: being hunted as well as the spread of human disease. Flash forward to 2003, however, and scientists tried to bring them back to life. This is the first extinct creatures that scientists ever tried to clone. That is absolutely crazy. For 7 minutes. DNA from Celia, the last living individual of the species, was taken and implanted into the womb of a domestic goat. From here, the clone was in fact born, but due to lung complications was unable to survive for longer than 7 minutes. It was a short life, but a monumental one that definitely broke new ground in the scientific world. In our number 7 spot today, we have Garima 1. Garima is similar to Samrupa that we already talked about, and in fact she was born in the same place, the National Dairy Research Institute, just shortly after Samrupa, and luckily her birth did end up being more successful considering she made it past the first year of life. She was actually cloned on June 6th, 2009, and things seemed to be going quite well until around June and July of 2011. Garima was created through the same hand-guided cloning technique as Samrupa, so it's clear that the technique was evolving and getting better, but things still unfortunately went awry. When things took a turn for the worst, doctors struggled to figure out exactly what was the problem, but eventually it was revealed that her problem was with her heart. Researchers revealed that her heart was abnormally overweight and much larger in size than other buffaloes her same age, and this likely led to the complications challenges she faced that sadly culminated in her passing in August of 2011. In our number 6 spot today, we have the argali. In the earlier days of cloning experiments, scientists attempted to clone an argali, which is also known as a type of mountain sheep. These sheep are known to roam the highlands of western East Asia, the Himalayas, Tibet, and the Altai Mountains. The reason they wanted to clone these sheep is because they are important to the ecosystems they live in, and unfortunately they are a threatened species. Now, I know there's controversy over the cloning of threatened or extinct species, but personal opinions aside, they were making this attempt to see if this could be a viable way to potentially save a species. Unfortunately, however, these attempts would prove to be futile. Using the same techniques used in the instance of Dolly the sheep, the somatic cell nuclear transfer, while they believed it would be promising, all attempts to clone the mammal failed to produce any viable results, and thus modern science wasn't able to assist in the continuation of this species. But in good news, while the species is still threatened, it is still around and not quite endangered, although its life is mainly threatened due to trophy hunters and ranchers.
The Pyrenean ibex, also called the bucardo, was a wild mountain goat that lived in the Pyrenees Mountains between Spain and France. It was extinct in 2000 when the last known female, named Celia, died after getting caught under a fallen tree. But scientists were not ready to give up on the species. In 2003, researchers used frozen skin samples from Celia to try cloning her. They took DNA from those samples, inserted it into goat eggs, and implanted the embryos into domestic goat surrogates. For a brief moment, it worked. The cloned ibex was born, the first time an extinct animal had been brought back to life. But the clone only survived about 7 minutes. It had really bad lung problems, so technically the Pyrenean ibex went extinct 2 times. But the experiment was not a total failure. It proved cloning was possible, it just had to be perfected. The northern white rhino was nearly extinct by 2018. There were only 2 left in the world, and they were both female, so it really looked like this was it. But scientists in Kenya, along with members of the Leibniz Institute for Zoo and Wildlife Research in Germany, and the San Diego Zoo's Frozen Zoo, collected eggs from the 2 surviving females and used frozen sperm from males that had already died. The plan is to make embryos in the lab and implant them into southern white rhino females who can act as surrogate moms. That way the babies would be northern white rhinos just born from a closely related species. The process is not easy though. Rhinos have really long pregnancies, around 16 months, and getting in vitro fertilization to work in rhinos is super tricky, but the team's already made some healthy embryos and now they're focused on getting one of them to actually develop into a living calf. If this works, the northern white rhino would go from being basically extinct to having a real chance at survival again. It's a long road, but it's probably the species' only chance. Next up, we have Dolly the sheep. Now, obviously sheep aren't extinct, but this was the first mammal cloned from an actual adult cell. This changed everything. Back in 1996, scientists took a cell from a fin Dorset sheep and transferred its nucleus into an egg cell that had its own DNA removed. This egg was then implanted into a surrogate sheep, and out came Dolly, the world's first cloned mammal. She wasn't the first animal cloned overall, but cloning from an adult cell showed that mature cells could be sorta reprogrammed to develop into an entire animal. Dolly lived for 6 years, had 6 lambs. Cloning was now more than just science fiction. By the late 80s, black-footed ferrets were basically extinct in the wild. Luckily, a small group was found in Wyoming in 1981, and conservationists captured some to start breeding them in captivity. But since the population was so small, the ferret's genes were too similar. Too much mixing of similar genes is obviously not a good thing. There needs to be some variation in there. So in 2020, the group Revive and Restore cloned a ferret named Elizabeth Ann to help fix this, using frozen cells from a wild ferret. Elizabeth Ann was born healthy and released back into the wild to add some new genetic variety into the ferret population. The Przewalski's horse is the last truly wild horse species on Earth. Wild meaning it was never domesticated. These horses used to roam the steppes of Central Asia, but by the late 60s, they were pretty much mostly wiped out. The main reasons were overhunting, plus fences and farms pushing them out of their habitats. After that, the only Przewalski's horses left were stuck in zoos and breeding programs. But in 2020, scientists used frozen tissue from a stallion named Kaporovic, stored for 40 years in a frozen zoo, to clone a healthy baby named Kurt in Texas. A few years later, they cloned Kurt's genetic twin, Molly. These clones brought fresh genes into the very small population, and now these horses are being released back into the wild. This is probably the most successful de-extinction case in history, hopefully not the last.
In our number 5 spot today, we have the gar. A gar is a species of wild cattle that is native to South Asia and Southeast Asia, and unfortunately they're listed as a vulnerable species on the IUCN Red List, and they have been since 1986. This is exactly why, in 2001, scientists decided it was time to try and clone one. With a population that has declined over 70% in the last 3 generations, they seemed like a perfect candidate to become the first ever endangered species to be cloned. In 2001, at the Trans-Ova Genetics Center in Sioux Center, Iowa, they were able to birth a clone gar. They obviously used gar DNA, but used a domestic cow as a surrogate mother to carry the clone. This of course was a huge breakthrough, but unfortunately the life of the gar was cut short as the calf passed away within 48 hours of its birth. Although this is obviously terrible, I guess the upside is that it is believed that the calf passed due to dysentery, which is not thought to have been related to the cloning process, which does mean that although the outcome wasn't as predicted or hoped, the cloning could still be considered a success. In our number 4 spot today, we have Injaz. With a name that means achievement, she clearly was exactly that, because Injaz was the first camel clone ever produced. She was born back in 2009 at the Camel Reproduction Center in Dubai, and she certainly was a proud accomplishment for all of those who worked to create and raise her. In fact, the cloning of Injaz was such a success that she lived for over a decade. Her birth prompted the center to continue cloning camels, which they did about 20 to 25 times a year in the time after Injaz was born. She broke ground once again when she proved that cloned camels could in fact conceive and give birth naturally, and she did so a few times, but in the end it would be this that led to her demise. On her 4th calf, as she carried it, it grew to be too big for her to carry, which unfortunately led to dystocia late in her pregnancy. Scientists did their best to save her, but unfortunately they lost both of them. Everyone who worked to care for Injaz was rightfully extremely upset at her passing, but they clearly used her and her success as a starting point for what was to come. Now the center is turning out dozens of cloned camels every year, some going for $55,000. Not sure how I feel about that, but you know, whatever. In our number 3 spot today, we have the Banteng. Back in 2003, scientists at the Advanced Cell Technology of Worcester, Massachusetts were ecstatic when they successfully birthed a clone Banteng, which is an endangered species of cattle. To do this, they actually took frozen tissues from a male of this species that passed away many years earlier in 1980. They used these skin cells and inserted the nuclei into cow eggs, and a cow was used as a surrogate mother. They attempted this with 16 pregnancies, 2 of which came to term. With the success of one clone did come the birth of another identical twin who was born to a different cow mother, but despite being carried to term and birth, this clone was not as expected. It was twice the normal birth weight, which quickly proved to be a very negative sign. As for the clone who was considered a success, it was hand-raised at the San Diego Wild Animal Park's Infant Isolation Unit. Unfortunately, however, due to an injury that the animal got when it was less than 7 years old, it did end up passing away, which meant that sadly the clone only lasted for about half the expected lifespan for this species of animal. In our number 2 spot today, we have the woolly mammoth. We would certainly be missing a very important animal on this list if we didn't include the woolly mammoth. These guys were of course a species of mammoth, and in fact they were one of the last in line of the mammoth species. Because of the fact that in both Alaska and Siberia there were frozen carcasses discovered, they're actually one of the most well-studied extinct creatures. Exactly why or how they were driven to extinction is widely debated, and another thing people like to debate is whether or not we should try and bring them back. There was a genome project completed in 2015, and since then it has been proposed the species could be revived through a few different means, but no one has yet taken the leap. Here's the thing though, there's a new company that is pretty set on de-extincting woolly mammoth, and they have a new investor. This investor is called In-Q-Tel, and they are registered as a non-profit venture capital firm that is funded by the CIA. They claim that the interest in this company is less about mammoths and more about the capability to do such crazy projects. I know this is more like a future project that might happen, but when we're talking about a huge animal like the woolly mammoth, we have to bring it up. Okay, I live in Canada. That's where the woolly mammoth would also live. I feel like. I don't know. I feel like it just has consequences for me, so I'm concerned. In our number 1 spot today, we have the Morian viviparous tree snail. This was a species of air-breathing tropical land snails that were endemic to French Polynesia, and their near extinction was caused by a chain of events that happened after something humans did. The African land snail was introduced into Tahiti in 1967 as a food source, but it quickly escaped and began to destroy crops. Biologists wanted to attempt to control the African land snail, so they decided to introduce the rosy wolf snail to the area in 1977. This went absolutely haywire, as the rosy wolf snail didn't just control the population of African land snails, but rather started to eradicate all of the snails that were native to the area, which of course includes our little friend. So this one little introduction led to them being totally extinct in the wild. These snails still exist in captivity, and there have been attempts to re-release them into the wild, maybe clone them to boost their population numbers, but unfortunately the rosy wolf snail continues to prey upon them, so at this point researchers are unsure if it will ever be possible for them to live in the wild again.
Colossal Biosciences, a Dallas biotech founded in 2021 by George Church and Ben Lamb, actually brought the dire wolf back from extinction. They took ancient DNA, one sample about 13,000 years old, the other around 72,000, identified about 20 genes that gave the ancient wolves their larger skulls, stronger bones, lighter fur, more muscular legs, and then they used CRISPR to edit those into modern gray wolf cells. They cloned those edited cells via what's called somatic cell nuclear transfer, transferring the edited cells into dog embryos, which were carried by domestic dogs. Romulus and Remus arrived in October of 2024, and Khaleesi in January of 2025. They were about as close to actual living dire wolves as they could be. They live in a 2,000-acre Texas preserve with 10-foot zoo-grade fencing, cameras, drones, vets, care staff, a storm shelter. Colossal calls it functional de-extinction because they're not true dire wolves. They're wolves with more ancient-type traits designed to fill the same role in the wild. They're not Jurassic Park-level clones, but I mean, they're pretty damn close. Colossal Biosciences also gave us what they call the woolly mouse this year. Scientists compared DNA from around 121 mammoths and elephants, some fossils more than 1 million years old, to find out which genes made mammoths suited for cold. They picked 7 genes responsible for fur length, texture, color, fat storage, and then used CRISPR to edit them into regular lab mice. And the result was mice with long, wavy golden fur and extra fat storage. In under a year, they had 38 of these woolly mice. Now, you can see where this is going. What we really want are mammoths. So why start with mice? Well, they reproduce quickly, about a 20-day pregnancy, so Colossal can test if the edits work in a live animal before trying them in larger species. The next step is Asian elephants, whose DNA matches mammoths 99.6%. They plan to edit 65 to 85 mammoth traits into elephant embryos, then implant them into pregnant elephants. Their goal is to have an actual mammoth calf by 2028. Maya was born on June 10th, 2022. She's the world's first cloned Arctic wolf. The team behind it was Syngene, a biotech company in Beijing, and they pulled it off using skin cells from a wild Arctic wolf that had died. They took that DNA and basically swapped the nucleus from the wolf cell into an egg cell that had its own DNA removed, and then they created the embryos. They implanted those embryos into beagle dogs, and it worked. Maya came out healthy. She's not de-extinct since Arctic wolves still exist in the wild, but this was a huge moment for cloning endangered animals. These wolves live in brutal, frozen environments, and their numbers are starting to shrink because of habitat loss and climate change. But Maya proves we've reached a point where cloning can realistically help endangered species from disappearing completely. completely. The Tasmanian tiger, also called the Thylacine, looked kind of like a skinny wolf with stripes on its back, but it wasn't a wolf at all. It was a marsupial, basically a mammal that carries its babies in a pouch, like a kangaroo. These things used to roam Australia, but after years of hunting and habitat loss, the last known one died at Hobart Zoo in 1936. For a long time, that was the end of the story. But now scientists are trying to bring it back. In 2017, a group in Australia managed to sequence the Thylacine's DNA using bits from old museum specimens. Then they started editing the DNA of the Thylacine's closest living relatives, like the Tasmanian devil, to try and build a working embryo. They're using CRISPR to swap in Thylacine traits, hoping to eventually grow one either in a surrogate animal or maybe even an artificial womb. Passenger pigeons used to be everywhere in North America, millions of them flying in huge flocks. They'd roost in forests so thick that branches would break and drop tons of pigeon droppings, which is gross, but it actually helped fertilize the soil. By 1914, they were totally wiped out, thanks to overhunting and habitat loss. But now, scientists are trying to bring them back by using DNA from museum specimens and editing that into their closest living relative, the band-tailed pigeon. Because band-tailed DNA isn't identical, this would create a hybrid. Not a perfect passenger pigeon, but it would be about as close as you can get. They also tested how reintroducing these birds could affect forests. For example, researchers in Michigan simulated how a massive flock might disturb the trees, breaking branches, letting light in, changing the soil, in order to see if these birds would actually be helping anything. Right now, the team has band-tailed pigeons with CRISPR gene editing tools built in so that the edits can be passed to their offspring. And they're aiming to hatch the first passenger pigeon-like chicks around 2029, before eventually testing releases back into the wild.
After reviving dire wolves, Dallas-based Colossal Biosciences is going even bigger. They've now set their sights on two massive Ice Age animals, the short-faced bear, which stood about 14 feet tall and weighed over a ton, and Castorides, a beaver that was the size of a small person, meaning like 5 feet tall. Their plan is to basically take ancient DNA from fossils, find the genes that control things like size, metabolism, and bone structure, then plug those into modern animals. Grizzlies stand in for the bear, regular beavers for the mega beaver. They use CRISPR to do the editing, implant the embryos into surrogates, and hope the result looks and acts like the original Ice Age version. The idea is that these animals had very positive effects on the environment. They shaped rivers, moved seeds around, and cleared space for other species. Colossal's even working with indigenous groups to figure out how and where these creatures might fit back into the wild. Still, there are big unknowns. These animals disappeared over 10,000 years ago, so drop them into today's forests or waterways, and honestly, who knows what happens? They could throw things off completely at worst, or just not survive. Now, over in Australia, scientists have been trying to bring back one of the weirdest frogs I've ever heard of, and I've talked about some weird frogs on the channel before. Now, it's called the southern gastric brooding frog. It went extinct in the early 80s, but what was so strange about it? Well, it swallowed its own eggs, shut down its stomach acid, and grew the babies inside of it. Then it would give birth by burping up its young. That has to be one of the craziest birthing processes I've ever heard of. Since 2013, a team working on the Lazarus Project has been trying to bring it back using preserved tissue samples from the 70s. They took the nuclei from old cells and put them into eggs from a closely related species, the barred frog. Now, a few embryos started developing. They reached an important stage called gastrulation, where the cells finally start folding into organs. Unfortunately, none made it to full tadpoles, but even getting that far was a huge deal. It proved that it's possible frozen cells from an extinct species can still form life. Now, according to project lead Dr. Mike Archer, the science isn't being held back by DNA damage, it's the technology. Frogs only lay eggs once a year, so there's a really small window to get it right. For now, they're kind of stuck with embryos that stop halfway, but even that's enough to show amphibian, resurrection. It isn't completely unheard of. Now, if they can get past the early development stages. The next steps are growing live tadpoles and eventually froglets that can make their way back into streams. In April of 2025, Colossal Biosciences announced that they'd cloned 4 red wolves using so-called ghost alleys found in coyote wolf hybrids along the Gulf Coast. Red wolves are critically endangered. There's less than about 20 left in the wild and just a few hundred in captivity, and their gene pool is super shallow. What exactly are ghost allies though? Well, they're basically hidden bits of red wolf DNA that can still be found in coyotes, so Colossal extracted them, then used domestic dog surrogates to bring 4 new pups into the world. Now these pups now live on the same Texas preserve than their dire wolf clones Colossals they created. Conservationists call this a form of genetic rescue, so using a natural genetic variation to boost the health of a dying species. Critics say we still don't know how these clones will do in the wild, but everyone agrees this is a major step forward when it comes to conservation. Now, the Javan Banteng is a type of wild cattle native to Southeast Asia. Their numbers have been dropping. Back in 2003, they were brought back thanks to cloning. Scientists used skin cells from a Banteng that had died in 1980 and preserved in the San Diego Zoo's Forest Frozen Zoo. Now, they transferred the nucleus from that skin cell into a domestic cow egg, implanted it into a pregnant cow's, and voila! A live Banteng calf was born on April 1st, 2003. A second calf followed 2 days later. Sadly, that one didn't make it. Now, the first calf did pretty well though. It lived a full 7 years before dying from a leg injury in 2010. So, while not perfect, I mean, these early days of cloning were full of failures. It wasn't a short-lived lab experiment either. This was a healthy, breathing animal that helped preserve, genetics that might have been lost forever. You could say it was sort of proof of concept.
We're kicking off the list with a big one, the king of the dinosaurs, the Tyrannosaurus rex. This was a formidable dinosaur that lived approximately 68 to 66 million years ago during the late Cretaceous period. Known for its massive size, sharp teeth, and powerful hind limbs, the T-Rex was one of the largest land predators in Earth's history. The T-Rex could grow up to 40 feet in length and stood about 15 feet tall, with a large skull filled with serrated teeth, capable of crushing bones. It was a carnivorous predator, preying on other dinosaurs and potentially scavenging for food as well. T-Rex likely had excellent vision and sense of smell, making it a skilled hunter. The general consensus amongst scientists is that resurrecting dinosaurs is highly improbable due to the ancient age of their fossils, making the recovery of viable genetic material nearly impossible. Despite these challenges though, the Adam Smith Institute is attempting to resurrect dinosaurs, including the T-Rex, by backbreeding flightless birds. Modern birds are considered descendants of dinosaurs, and the Institute aims to isolate their DNA and incorporate gene technology to recreate dinosaur traits. The Institute's vision goes beyond just resurrecting the T-Rex. They plan to extend this technology to revive more dinosaur species, expanding the controversial boundaries of de-extinction efforts. Number 9, the Velociraptor. Velociraptors were about 6 feet long, standing around 2 feet tall. They had a slender body, sharp claws on their hands, and of course that distinctive sickle-shaped claw on each foot. They were incredibly predatory. I'm going to start off with a quote by Madsen Peary, the president of the aforementioned Adam Smith Institute. Several species of dinosaur will be recreated, making their appearance on Earth for the first time in 66 million years. It will not be done a la Jurassic Park, with their DNA extracted from blood-sucking insects preserved in amber. It was always highly dubious that enough of the DNA molecule would survive in this way. Instead, dinosaurs will be recreated by backbreeding from flightless birds. Birds are modern-day dinosaurs, but they no longer look like dinosaurs. Deep within their DNA, however, will be information relating to the time when they did. And a combination of selective breeding and gene technology will be used to give them the characteristic features of dinosaurs. The jaws with teeth, the tail, the small forelimbs. Anyway, I can't imagine dinosaurs like T-Rexes and Velociraptors being brought back and then released into the wild, because that would be a disaster and entirely pointless. This would definitely be a situation where they would be created purely for the spectacle of it, but that would be pretty ethically questionable as well. But now that we've established what these dinosaurs would be used for, basically being caged up for us to gawk at in weird amusement parks, let's move on to the next terrifying species on the list. Next up on the list is the Ankylosaurus. Ankylosaurus was a dinosaur that roamed the earth around 68 to 66 million years ago. It was a herbivore, but it was coated in this crazy armor. It was about the length of a car, covered in thick, bony plates all over its body. It also had a tail that ended in a heavy club type thing, like solid bone. Very powerful weapon. If a predator like Tyrannosaurus rex came too close, Ankylosaurus could swing its tail, delivering a bone-crushing blow. These were like tanks of their time. It wasn't the kind of dinosaur you'd want to mess with if you were another dinosaur. As for the idea of bringing them back, in theory, it's a possibility with advancements in genetic engineering. Scientists have explored the concept of de-extinction. This would mean extracting and manipulating ancient DNA, filling in the gaps with DNA from related modern species, and then finding a suitable surrogate for gestation. But again, all that DNA is really old, so it would probably mean something similar to the whole flightless bird thing, but I'm not a scientist and I don't know how the hell they're even going to go about that. But number 7, Gigantosaurus. Gigantosaurus was a massive theropod dinosaur that lived around 98 million years ago. Gigantosaurus earned its name, which means giant southern lizard, because of its formidable size and strength. In terms of sheer size, Gigantosaurus was one of the largest theropod dinosaurs, rivaling even Tyrannosaurus rex. It could reach lengths of up to 40 feet or more, making it a top predator in its ecosystem. It had these really sharp teeth, some measuring over 6 inches long, which were designed for, of course, tearing through flesh. It had incredible hunting abilities. It was an apex predator. Its large size, combined with its powerful jaws and sharp teeth, allowed it to take down even the largest dinosaurs of its time. In at number 6, we have iguanodons. These were actually herbivores, so not as dangerous as some of the stuff on this list, but they were still very formidable creatures, and I think it wouldn't take kindly to humans walking up to them if they were walking around nowadays for some reason. These lived during the early Cretaceous period. It was a large dinosaur, reaching lengths of up to 33 feet and weighing several tons. They're known for that unique thumb spike, which would have been pretty useful for defending against predators. They also had a toothless beak at the front of their mouth, used for cropping vegetation. It could walk on both its hind legs and front limbs. This allowed it to browse for vegetation efficiently. It likely fed on a variety of plants, ferns, conifers, and other vegetation that was abundant during the time. Iguanodons were also one of the first dinosaurs to be scientifically described. Its fossils were discovered in the early 19th century and played a big role in shaping our understanding of dinosaurs during that time. Alright, iguanodons are cool, but not quite as terrifying as a lot of what's on this list. So let's get back to the bad boys.
China's been cloning animals way longer than most people realize. All the way back in 1963, they successfully cloned a common carp using nuclear transfer, a huge deal at the time. Now, cloning fish is trickier than mammals because of how they reproduce, but they pulled it off, and it laid the groundwork for a lot of what came after. Since then, they've cloned other species too, like Mozambique, tilapia, brown rats, and even pigs. They were mainly trying to make fish farming more efficient and get a better handle on how these animals reproduce. By cloning fish, scientists could create more consistent breeding stock, which matters when you're, feeding just millions of people, no big deal. It also opened the door for conserving endangered fish species later on, so while cloning tilapia didn't get the attention that, say, cloning a mammoth might, it was quite a big step. The Florina giant tortoise used to live in Florina Island in the Galapagos, but it was wiped out back in the 1800s, mostly thanks to whalers and pirates who used them as food and introduced invasive animals. But now scientists are bringing it back, not through cloning technology, but through smart breeding. In the early 2000s, researchers found tortoises on Isabella Island, about 50 miles away, with Florina DNA. Turns out sailors used to move tortoises between islands or just dump them off when they didn't need them anymore. These tortoises weren't 100% Florina, but some were pretty close. So scientists gathered, the ones with the strongest genetic similarities and started a breeding program on Santa Cruz Island. As of 2025, they've got about 400 baby tortoises with high percentages of this Florina DNA. Now the plan is to release them back onto the island, but first they need to get rid of rats, cats, and other invasive animals that would basically just eat the babies. This matters because these tortoises are what scientists call ecosystem engineers. They stomp around, spread seeds, clear brush, and basically keep the environment in check. If all goes well, this will be one of the most successful island rewilding projects ever. Way back in 1952, two scientists named Robert Briggs and Thomas King pulled off something huge. They cloned a frog using a method called somatic nuclear transfer. Basically, they took the nucleus, the cell's control center, from a normal frog cell and put it into an egg cell that had its own nucleus removed. That egg then started developing into a frog embryo. It wasn't a full animal clone, but it showed for the first time that you could take a mature cell, reset it, and grow a new organism from it. This was a massive breakthrough because it laid the groundwork for cloning animals later on. It proved that cloning could actually work. Plus, frogs are simpler to work with in the lab than mammals, so this gave scientists a practical way to explore cloning. And then about a decade after the first frog cloning, scientist John Gurdon came along. Instead of using embryonic cells like before, he took a fully specialized adult cell from a frog's intestine and transplanted its nucleus into an egg cell. The egg grew into a tadpole, proving that adult cells, even after they've kind of decided what, they're supposed to be doing, and so to speak, still hold all the information in their DNA to create a whole new animal. Before this, most scientists thought once a cell, specialized, it lost that ability. Now, Gurdon's experiment showed cells could be reprogrammed, which was huge for cloning. This discovery directly paved the way for cloning mammals, including Dalia the sheep, decades later. Now, without this experiment, cloning adult animals probably wouldn't have even been possible. In 2025, scientists put together a big review looking at cloning and conservation. They found that so far, 56 different species have been cloned using nuclear transfer techniques. Now, that's everything from mammals and amphibians to fish and insects, and about 90% of those cloned animals lived full, healthy lives. Plus, most of them ended up being able to have babies of their own. Love that for them. That's huge. Cloning is actually making a difference in real-world conservation. Scientists are using cloning to bring back genetic diversity in endangered species, revive species that are struggling, and we're on the brink of actually bringing back animals that went extinct a very long time ago. Cloning gives conservationists another tool in their toolbox, especially for species with tiny populations or ones that can't breed naturally anymore. The review also points out that the technology is getting more reliable and accessible, so cloning will probably play a bigger role going forward. So it's not a perfect fix, there are still some ethical dilemmas to deal with, but the results so far show that cloning can be a really positive thing for our future.
Number 5, we have the Spinosaurus. This is the main dino from Jurassic Park 3. I always thought this was a really cool one when I was a kid. These are often called the spine lizard. It was a colossal dinosaur that existed around 112 to 93 million years ago. These spines on its back could reach up to 7 feet in height. The dino itself was around 49 to 59 feet long and weighed in at 7 to 20 tons. Spinosaurus had an elongated snout filled with conical teeth suitable for catching slippery prey like fish. At first we thought it to be primarily a land-dwelling dinosaur, but more recent findings suggested it was more adapted to a semi-aquatic or even fully aquatic lifestyle. It had large clawed limbs specifically adapted for swimming. Next we have the Gigantoraptor. These things really creep me out. Imagine a turkey, like ostrich type thing, but the size of a house. It was about 16 feet long and stood around 11 feet tall, making it one of the largest feathered dinosaurs ever discovered. What makes Gigantoraptor truly interesting is its unusual combination of features. It had a beak like a bird, which hints at a diet of plants and small animals, but it couldn't fly. Scientists believe it might have used its large size as a defense mechanism against predators instead. Gigantoraptor was discovered in Mongolia, adding to the ever-expanding list of fascinating dinosaurs found in that region. When scientists unearthed its fossils, they were baffled and pretty excited all at once. It was massive, but had bird-like traits, which challenged what researchers thought they knew about dinosaurs' evolution at the time. Number 3, the Mapposaurus. So this colossal predator prowled ancient landscapes of South America around 100 million years ago. Mapposaurus was a member of the theropod family, closely related to the famous T-Rex. It could reach lengths of up to 33 feet. One of the most intriguing things about the Mapposaurus, though, and what set it apart from the T-Rex, was its social behavior. Fossil evidence suggests that these dinosaurs might have hunted in packs. So imagine a gang of these massive predators working together, kind of like velociraptors would. This pack hunting strategy allowed them to target even the most enormous titanosaurs that roamed the region. Mapposaurus was discovered in 2006 when its fossils were found in Argentina. And at number 2, we have the Megaraptor. These were actually closer to the T-Rex than they were the raptor actually, but they were much faster and more dexterous than the T-Rex. They also had the use of their hands, which would have made them a terrifying threat. The Megaraptor was a member also of the theropod family, known for its sharp claws, carnivorous habits. These guys had enormous sickle-shaped claws, not on their feet like other raptors, but on their hands, which could reach lengths of nearly 14 inches. These claws were its primary weapon for hunting, used to slash through the hides of prey with very deadly precision. The name Megaraptor actually translates to giant thief. When this thing was first discovered, it was misidentified because of the mismatched discovery of claws and other bones. It was thought to be closer related to the Velociraptor family, but it was later discovered the claws belonged to a different, larger dinosaur, leading to the creation of the genus Megaraptor. Its fossils have been dug out throughout South America. Its habitat would have been a mix of forests and then open plains, and it probably preyed on smaller dinosaurs and other creatures using those claws. And finally, we have Carnotaurus, the meat-eating bull. Just look at this monster. Incredibly intimidating, but relatively compact compared to some of its larger dinosaur relatives. It's of course known for the pair of horns above its eyes, giving it a bull-like appearance. Also kind of demonic to me. These horns, coupled with the deep skull and powerful jaw muscles, likely means that Carnotaurus didn't just take out weaker species, but probably fought amongst themselves too, using their headgear to establish dominance over one another and attract mates. They had a streamlined body, meaning they were probably fast and agile. Then you got those hilariously stubby arms. Definitely detracts from the fear factor a bit, but it compensated with those big juicy legs in the back. Its fossils have been primarily found in South America, specifically in Argentina.
And now at number 8, we have the Tasmanian tiger. Before researching for this list, I had no idea that these things ever existed. I've heard of the Tasmanian devil, but not the Tasmanian tiger. These creatures predominantly hunted at night, and their prey includes kangaroos, wallabies, small mammals, and birds. Hopefully we're not considered small mammals. Well, apparently they would chase after their prey over long distances, slowly tiring them out, and then without warning they would sprint and grab their victims by the neck. They were able to open up their jaws to about a 120-degree angle, and sometimes they would even hop around on 2 legs. I mean, what a weird animal. They eventually died out in the 1930s, but that's not stopping scientists from one day bringing them back from the dead to live amongst us. Number 7, we have the Irish elk. This animal was one of the largest deer to ever walk on the earth. It's suspected that these animals roamed the earth about 7,700 years ago in Siberia, and our current red deer or fallow deer might have some similar genes to the Irish elk. They stood at a height of about 7 feet tall, and their massive antlers measured in at a whopping 12 feet long. I mean, is this real life right now? Those humongous antlers probably did some serious damage back in the day. Well, not really. Apparently their antlers weren't the best in battle, it was mainly used as a way to attract the ladies. In either case, I think the Irish elk would give our current moose a run for their money. Unless it's a Canadian moose. Canadian mooses are extremely large. For those of you guys who are scared of birds, you might want to take cover because in at number 6 we have the moa. These guys were flightless birds that lived in New Zealand. They went extinct about 700 years ago, which is actually pretty recent if you think about it. But now scientists believe that they are getting very close to bringing these large birds back from the dead. The moa were extremely tall, they measured in at about 12 feet and weighed over a ton. I mean, what the heck did these guys eat? I need to get on this moa diet when I'm ready to put on some serious muscle gains. They were also very swift runners. They were able to defend themselves by kicking whenever they got cornered. Thankfully, they mainly ate seeds, fruits, leaves, and grass, so you know what? I'd gladly welcome these guys back if we managed to bring them back from extinction. But I know a few people who are scared of birds who would probably want to stop this from happening altogether.
Number 9, the woolly rhinoceros. Yeah, since we're on the woolly train, what better time to mention this hairy beast? The woolly rhino. I oddly want to pet him. Just one brush. Once upon a time, these rhinos were common throughout Europe and Asia. They were well prepared for the cold tundra. They had a thick blanket of fur, just like the old woolly mammoth. So no ice age will stop this rhino. I mean, it didn't help them out, but it was mostly humans needing food and warmth that led to their extinction. But cut to 14,000 years later, we're trying to apologize. We're trying to make it up to them by bringing them back to life. Hi, you exist now. Isn't that great? To a world that's even more harsh. Yeah, remember when it was cold? Well, now it's really warm. Good game, rhinos. Might want to go get a haircut. The same company responsible for the Mammoth project is also trying to bring back this hairy boy. I mean, I'm all for science, don't get me wrong, but if these species died off that long ago, will highways help? Probably not.
Number 8, the heath hen. That's interesting, I don't know anything about that. Here we go. Finally something that isn't the size of a minivan. I'm already excited. The heath van we lost quite recently actually, which of course is sad. We're losing birds rapidly, especially in North America. Our prairies are shrinking and they're being converted to agriculture. By 1870, the only remaining heath hens were protected in a vineyard, or a vineyard. I'm not sure how that's pronounced. But sadly, when 1932 rolled around, those fluffy dudes were no more. Also, Thanksgiving dinners didn't help. I get hungry sometimes. Yeah, we ate another animal to extinction. I'm seeing a pattern here. However, all hope is not lost for the heath hens, hence the title of this list. A company called Revive and Restore, good name, they're trying to get these hens back to the sky rather than back on our plates. They've been working with the community since 2014 with some scientific help from the prairie chicken.
Number 7, great auk. Once thriving in colonies off North Atlantic coasts, the great auk would grow up to 30 inches long, and its tiny little wings would only be used to swim, so don't get too excited. These little balls of fluff did not fly in the skies. Their wings were really tiny. They were like 13 centimeters long, just little... They were cute, but quite defenseless. I don't know if you could have picked up on that. You know, very cute, very defenseless, obviously. Fluffy dudes. Around the 1500s, European fishermen discovered this perfect area for hunting, and it just happened to be where most, if not all, these great auks were thriving. Newfoundland, yeah, it looked like the iceberg in Club Penguin at this point. It was packed. It was a good time if you weren't a great auk. You were eating good if you were a fisherman, so their number rapidly declined. By 1950, the last 2 known specimens were hunted by one single fisherman on Eldey Island, just off the coast of Iceland. One dude just Thanos'd an entire bird species. What a monster. Scientists plan on using genetic information extracted from their fossils or preserved organs. You know, we love organs in jars. So they plan on editing their DNA with the closest living species, which is now the razor-billed auk. The organization Revive and Restore is behind the wheel on this one again. You'll see these names come up a few times over and over on this list because, yeah, not too many companies are trying to revive dead animals. What do you know?
Number 6, the Steller sea cow. Named after George Wilhelm Steller, who discovered this ball of blubber back in 1741. The Steller sea cow was first discovered during the Vitus Bering's Great Northern Expedition. They found her right after the crew became shipwrecked. Just when you thought it couldn't get any worse. Here's a surprise sea cow to confuse you. Good luck! They were quite common millions of years ago, but sadly, and unsurprisingly, they were no match for humans. They only swam about a meter deep, so they were quite easy to hunt. George Steller assures that these creatures were made of pure love. They had strong bond with their families, which made it even easier to hunt. That's sick. Taylor. That's Taylor. Wow, that's really sad. What's also sad is my pronunciation of gestation, considering they had a 1-year gestation period. The species just couldn't reproduce fast enough to keep up with the hunting. But scientists were able to sequence their genome, which means we could see these creatures again one day. The answer may lie in the DNA of a dugong. Is that a Pokemon? That's a Pokemon, isn't it? That's a Pokemon. Isn't it?
And now at number 3 we have the Siberian unicorn. I guess unicorns really did exist. I kid you not, except they didn't look like the typical white horse that we see in fairy tale books. So let's take a look at what this thing looks like. Here it is right here. The Siberian unicorn lived up until 39,000 years ago. They were 1.9 meters tall, about 4 meters long, and weighed in more than 4 tons. These massive creatures probably went extinct due to the drastic climate change, loss of vegetation, and of course human hunting. But just like the other creatures on our list, scientists believe that they can potentially bring back this animal and reintroduce them into its natural habitat. But I'm thinking that the Siberian unicorn is probably better off staying extinct. I don't think that they would be able to live in our current environmental conditions. I mean, why would we want them to suffer? Haven't we already done enough damage? Topping our list at number 1, we have the Neanderthals. About 45,000 years ago, Homo sapiens lived alongside Neanderthals who had their own society, tools, and cultural practices. They most likely went extinct due to competition for resources, climate change, disease, or a combination of all those things. However, with our recent advancements with the genetic technologies, Neanderthals could possibly make a return to our civilization. Scientists are proposing that they can use the gene editing tools and DNA sequences to bring them back to life. But it's also important to note that we would not be bringing back a perfect copy of a Neanderthal, and I think it would be unethical to bring them back. I mean, don't get me wrong, I think it's awesome that de-extinction could be something that happens in our lifetime, but we also have to be very careful. I mean, we all saw what happened in Jurassic Park. They were able to bring back the dinosaurs, but was that a good idea? I don't think so.
In our number 10 spot, we have the elephant bird. The elephant bird became extinct approximately 1000 to 1200 CE, and it is most likely due to human activity due to hunting, climate and vegetation change, and habitat loss due to deforestation. These birds are from the ratite family, Epornithidae, and they were enormous flightless birds. They used to live in Madagascar. They stood about 9.8 feet tall and weighed approximately 1,600 pounds. Their closest living relative is the kiwi bird. It is said that they most likely ate low-hanging fruit, even though they look like they could gobble you up in one go. I would have personally thought them to be carnivores, but thankfully not. I would be fine if scientists brought them back. Any herbivore, is fine, but if they pulled a Jurassic Park on us and brought back the carnivores, then I would not be okay. In our number 9 spot, we have the Pyrenean ibex. The Pyrenean ibex was basically a wild goat. When people say that they love goats, I'm always a little perplexed. Why? Just why? Watch my dad will for sure watch this episode and will say something like, "Hey, I love goats," and yes, he does indeed. I don't know why. He's always sending me goat videos when he goes to his friend's farm. I shall never understand. Anyways, this wild goat was 5 feet long and apparently 30 inches tall. It was found in southwestern Europe, and the species died out in 2003, which is really not that long ago. I was 13. Shoot, I need to stop giving away my age. I mean, I was just born. Anyways, the last goat was born and died 7 minutes after its birth due to a lung defect. Hunting, inbreeding, and other factors basically caused this goat's extinction over time. Honestly, it's a bit of a shame that this goat no longer exists because it looks rather majestic, much more classier than regular goats. In our number 8 spot, we have the Chinese river dolphin. It breaks my heart to think that a species of the dolphin might be extinct, but sadly it is. The Chinese river dolphin, known as the baji, sadly went extinct in 2002. It primarily lived in freshwater rivers, primarily in the Yangtze River. The main reason for its extinction is due to the impact of humans. It was directly targeted by meat lovers, but also due to an increasing amount of construction projects on the river. The dolphin, who relies primarily on its sonar capabilities, found it hard to navigate for food because of the construction noise. Pollution in the waters also didn't help either, as well as overfishing. The males were about 7.5 feet long, while the females could be about 8.2 feet. I have a soft spot for dolphins, so honestly I really hope scientists scientists are able to bring this one back. In our number 7 spot, we have the dodo bird. The dodo bird is a bird that I would probably be terrified of if I was in a room alone with it, as it's just kinda scary looking. I don't know. I'm not a massive fan of birds in general, so maybe my biases. The dodo bird lived on the island of Mauritius. The bird was about 3.3 feet tall when alive. They went extinct in the 17th century, so quite a long time ago now. What did they eat? Well, their diet primarily consisted of eating from a specific tree that was, called the dodo tree, but the scientific name for the tree is called tambalacoke tree. They also ate nuts, fruits, roots, and small insects. So really, I would have nothing to be afraid of. I bet it would totally mess me up though, cause they were, big birds. My scrawny self would just hide. In our number 6 spot, we have the Tasmanian tiger. The Tasmanian tiger, despite its name, isn't actually a tiger, but was named this due to its tiger-like characteristics. The tiger only recently went extinct in the 20th century in 1936. The species slowly began to decrease about 2,000 years ago due to pressure from indigenous human settlers. They lived primarily in Australia and New Guinea. They were typically 39 inches to 51 inches long and 24 inches high. They have a close living relative, and that's the Tasmanian devil and the numbat. Not gonna lie, I had no idea the Tasmanian devil was a real animal. I totally thought it was just a lovable cartoon character, so I'm shook. Anyone else? Apparently there is hope for the Tasmanian tiger, as with recovering a little DNA, it may be possible to de-extinct the species. I hope scientists are able to.
Number 5, the dodo bird. So dodo birds were once big and beautiful. These flightless ground nesting birds once filled the islands of the Indian Ocean. They had massive talons. They were pretty scary. They were gray and blue, so they were beautiful. They didn't have any natural predator, right? This sounds great. No natural predator until we came along, of course. Around 1507, the island was discovered by Portuguese sailors, and the rest, yeah, you can guess, the rest is history. They were the easiest bird to hunt, hence the phrase dead as a dodo, right? They were easy to take out. They weren't just loved by sailors either. They were not 100% to blame here, okay? Monkeys, rats, pigs, any animal that made its way to the island just had their eggs for lunch. It was so easy. So it didn't take a long time for the dodo population to completely be gone. The last dodo was hunted in 1681, but could it be on this list? Could we bring back the dodo bird today? Hopefully, I mean maybe, I don't know. Scientists found an extremely well-preserved dodo skeleton back in 2007, so we may have a chance at picking apart some DNA. A research facility near Melbourne, Australia is currently trying to use pigeon genes to bring this bird back. Again, I'm all for science, I'm all for bringing animals back to life. Scientifically, that's a feat in itself, great work, we love it. But do we really think no one's gonna make dodo bird chicken wings? That's a problem waiting to happen. As soon as I said it, you were like, oh, that would be pretty good.
Number 4, Pyrenean ibex. I'm just as confused as you guys are. That Pyrenean ibex went extinct 22 years ago. Last one was seen in 2000, my friends. The last one was a female named Celia. That's so nice. A falling tree sadly killed her. Oh my god. That's horrible. A subspecies of the Spanish ibex were once native to the Pyrenees Mountains on the border of Spain and France. Back in the Dark Ages, medieval times, their population was reduced drastically to an endangered level. They would roam the land, but knights with swords and bows and armies to feed, you can kind of guess what happened there. Disease being spread by humans at this point also played an important role in their demise. Humans could barely keep up, let alone animals. The Pyrenean ibex was successfully cloned and brought back from extinction for a whopping 7 minutes. DNA from the last living lady was implanted into the womb of a domestic goat. Science is wild, dude. That's so crazy. Lung complications are why the clone didn't last longer than 7 minutes, but listen to what I just said. They made a clone for 7 minutes. It's a start.
Number 3, the Tasmanian tiger. Once native to Australia, classic, the Tasmanian tiger, also known as the Thylacine, you have to say that in an Australian accent, the Thylacine. It was a massive Thylacine. I'm gonna say it all day now. It was a massive carnivorous marsupial that went extinct around the 1930s. So major factors here, as you probably have guessed, climate change, hunting, and its genetic diversity wasn't all too great. It's sad on one hand because these beautiful creatures disappeared so recently, but it's recent enough that we have a shot at bringing them back. Yeah, just back to life. Hi, that was a close one. Go hunt. Yeah, imagine looking outside and seeing this thing on your front yard. Are we ready for this? I can barely handle like deer in Canada. I don't know. Squirrels, black squirrels, they're scary up in Canada. I don't know. Thank God for those jars though. About time we open those up. Some jars of organs, classic. Already we have some of the Tasmanian tiger genes present after scientists, inserted them into a mouse fetus, and they're just waiting to see what happens. The Australian Museum has been working hard to bring this beast back to life, and they're close. They're only still lacking the DNA fully to recreate it. So if you have any jars of Tasmanian tiger parts, comment down below, hit that thumbs up, let us know. We'll bring them back.
Number 2, the gastric brooding frog. That just sounds like it needs to be shot. I'm a big fan of frogs. I mean, I don't mind them. They're green and stuff and they're slimy, I guess. They're pretty cool. Except for when they hatch babies out of their backs. Taylor showed me a video of that earlier and I almost threw up. There's a joke there somewhere, but I don't know. That's just gross, dude. Why would you show me that, Taylor? Frogs are wild, but back in the day, they were quite dangerous to be around. Gastric brooding frogs, for one, are so alien. These frogs would swallow its egg and hatch them from their mouth. No. So if you saw this in the wild, you would know. You might just see one soon. Maybe your kids will see one in the wild. Now, they went extinct back in 1983, but scientists have figured out a way to implant dead cells into a fresh egg from an entirely different frog species. Let's just hope these new ones aren't born out of their back and we're golden. I don't have to think about that. Oh God. Oh.
And finally, number 1, the Megatherium. Mega. Big last. Number 1, mega number 1. That's actually not that big. We talked about bringing back the woolly mammoth, so what other Ice Age cast member can we see in live action in the future? Let's see. Perhaps the Megatherium, aka the giant ground sloth. Yeah, they're kind of cute. They're scary, but they're pretty cute. They're slow and cute. Sloths used to be a lot bigger than we think. We often laugh at them for being so slow. The movie Ice Age sure didn't help their case as the dodo birds. Of course, the giant ground sloth is closely related to our modern three-toed sloth, but luckily for us, today's sloths aren't the same size as an elephant. Yeah, because that would be a horror film, wouldn't it? If a giant elephant-sized sloth started to slowly climb a tree outside of my house, I'd be sick. I wouldn't wake up. I'd be like, that's it. I had a heart attack. That's the scariest thing I've ever seen. We may be able to bring this one back, although they died off 8,000 years ago. It's still possible. Anything's possible with science and a little hope and fear. DNA samples were extracted from their hair remains, so the next step is to develop a fetus in an artificial womb.
In our number 10 spot, we have Xiphactinus. Xiphactinus was a prehistoric fish that lived during the late Cretaceous period around 85 million years ago. It was a predatory fish that could grow up to 20 feet in length and weighed up to 1,500 pounds, making it one of the largest bony fish of all time. This fish had a long, streamlined body with powerful jaws and sharp teeth that allowed it to hunt and devour smaller fish and marine reptiles. It had a unique adaptation in its skeleton with a hinged lower jaw that could open very wide, allowing it to swallow prey whole. How terrifying is that? Fossils of this fish have been found in North America, particularly in what is now Kansas and Alabama, as well as in Europe and South America. It is believed that this fish went extinct along with the dinosaurs at the end of the Cretaceous period, around 66 million years ago. In our number 9 spot today, we have the Godzilla shark. With a name like that, this creature is surely anything but disappointing. About 300 million years ago, these guys ruled the sea and were one of the most terrifying sea creatures ever on our planet. Fossils of these guys have been found in the Mazzano Mountains, which lie east of Albuquerque, New Mexico, and they were found in 2013 by paleontologist John Paul Hodnett. So think of a massive shark, but now picture it covered in scales, like a reptile. Okay, now add 12 rows of super sharp teeth, and also the largest dorsal fin spines of any shark that has ever lived. Okay, so now you've pretty much got a Godzilla shark. It was nicknamed the Godzilla shark because of its size, as the skeleton is the largest fossil of its kind ever discovered in the area, as well as the fact that its fin spines are so intriguing to look at. While it was called the Godzilla shark upon its discovery, it has since received a more official name of Hoffman's dragon shark, both to honor the family that owned the land where the skeleton was found, and as an homage to its monstrous and reptilian appearance. In our number 8 spot today, we have the Temnodontosaurus. Temnodontosaurus is a genus of extinct marine reptile belonging to the group of ichthyosaurs. They lived during the Jurassic period, approximately 180 to 150 million years ago. These guys were a large predator that could grow up to 33 feet or 10 meters long, with a very long and streamlined body that allowed it to swim quickly through the water. These guys had a long snout filled with sharp teeth that it likely used to catch and eat fish and squid. Fossil evidence suggests that they may have also been cannibalistic, with larger individuals preying on smaller ones. Like in ichthyosaurs. These guys gave birth to live young rather than laying eggs. I mean, it's the ocean. Several species of these guys have been described, with the most well-known being T. platyodon. This species was first described in the early 19th century and is known from fossil remains found in Europe, particularly in Germany and the UK. T. platyodon was named for its flattened teeth, which were adapted for crushing the shells of its prey. Overall, these guys were a formidable predator that dominated the Jurassic seas. Its large size and sharp teeth made it a fearsome sight for any smaller creatures that happened to cross its path. In our number 7 spot today, we have the Tylosaurus. These creatures belong to the family of mosasaurs, and they have long eel-like bodies that allowed them to smoothly cruise through the waters. They had the ability to have intense bursts of speed that propelled them to their prey, which they could quickly take down. The snout of these creatures is thought to have been quite large and robust compared to other species of mosasaurs, which has led researchers to believe that they may have used it to their advantage. To do this, they might have rammed into larger prey so that they were stunned. This gave them time to turn around and finish the prey with their large jaws. Despite these specialized skills, it seems as though these guys weren't very picky with what they ate, as they have been found with all kinds of remains found in their stomach area. These creatures were very large, but they are also way faster and more agile compared to other mosasaurs. What more could you want in a prehistoric predator? In our number 6 spot today, we have Heliococysts moroccensis. These guys are an extinct animal that lived around 520 million years ago during the Cambrian period. They were a small, bizarre-looking creature with a spiral-shaped body and a mouth surrounded by tentacles. These guys are known from fossil remains found in Morocco. Scientists believe that these guys were a filter feeder, using their tentacles to capture plankton from the water. The spiral shape of its body may have helped to control its buoyancy and to help them just stay afloat in the water. Its mouth was located at the center of the spiral, and its tentacles extended outward to capture food. These guys are a very important animal in the study of early life on Earth because it belongs to a group of animals known as echinoderms. Echinoderms are a diverse group of animals that include modern-day sea stars, sea urchins, and sea cucumbers, all of the weird things sitting on the ocean floor. The discovery of these guys has helped scientists to better understand the evolution and the diversity of echinoderms.
In our number 4 spot, we have the saber-toothed tiger. Okay, if scientists brought back this species, this would be insane. But do we really need another predatory species that want humans to die? We already have to deal with, lions, tigers, and the reptiles in our government, so I think I speak for all of us when I say this isn't necessary, but would be cool to witness. The saber-toothed tiger has been a wonder to many for so long. They are famously known for their long, curved canine teeth. It could weigh anywhere between 485 pounds to 961 pounds. It was approximately 39 inches tall. Its closest relative is the tiger, of course. They originated in North and South America about 10,000 years ago, so it would be extraordinary if scientists found a way to bring them out of extinction. In our number 3 spot, we have the glyptodont. The glyptodont is a larger subfamily of the armadillo. They were around from approximately 34 million years ago in South America, and when the continents became connected, they spread to North America. They were about 12 feet long and 1.5 feet high. They had fluted teeth, and they were covered in a thick, bony carapace. They went extinct approximately 7,000 to 8,000 years ago. It's so interesting how much bigger animals were thousands of years ago, and now all of these big animals have much smaller subfamilies that are alive today. I mean, obviously that's better for us humans, as the less threats we have physically, the better, but still interesting to note. In our number 2 spot, we have the quagga. Okay, so you're probably thinking, Melissa, is this not just a zebra? Yeah, it is a species of zebra, but it's still different and it's extinct, and scientists are thinking of bringing it back. The quagga went extinct in the 19th century, and one of the last pictures that we have of the quagga alive is from 1870 in a London zoo. It's a subspecies of zebra from South Africa. It's about 8 feet 5 inches long and 4 feet 5 inches tall. It has a sandy brown coat with a white tail and stripes from the top to the middle part of its body. They were herbivores and would typically live 20 to 40 years. They look, pretty majestic to me. I hope this is a species that scientists are able to bring back. In our number 1 spot, we have the ground sloth. The ground sloth is from South Africa and went extinct approximately 11,000 years ago, and some of the species of ground sloths have been extinct longer. The Megatherium, for example, has been extinct for 12,000 years, and this one in particular looks more like a bear than a sloth. It was massive and could be up to 20 feet tall, weighing about 6,600 pounds. Imagine these sloths were just roaming the world today. There are already enough scary bears in the world. I feel like, we're good without this one. But still, this would be an unbelievable breakthrough if we could bring back these creatures. Although I am sure that they wouldn't be as friendly as Sid from Ice Age. That short, cute little guy wouldn't hurt a fly. His lisp is literally the cutest thing in the world. But anyways, would be cool if they came back.
In our number 5 spot today, we have the Megalodon, okay? My favorite, your favorite, everyone's favorite. Is any terrifying prehistoric sea creatures list truly complete without an appearance from the Meg? Megalodons are one of the largest sharks to have ever existed. They were huge, they were terrifying, they were apex predators, and they are the creatures that inspired the tales of Jaws, or the Meg. The teeth on these sharks are so large that they are 3 times larger than the teeth of a modern great white shark. With teeth that size, you can only imagine how large this shark would have been. It's pretty tough to figure out exactly why the Megalodon died out. I mean, they were one of the largest, scariest creatures who shouldn't have had any trouble getting food, but that might not be the case. Some believe it was the cooling waters, others believe it was the competition for food. Whatever the case in the end, while the Megalodon is an incredible creature in history, I think we can all breathe a sigh of relief that they aren't currently swimming around our oceans. Or are they? In our number 4 spot today, we have the Opabinia regalis. Opabinia regalis is an extinct animal that lived around 505 million years ago during the Cambrian period. It was a small, bizarre-looking creature with a long, segmented body that measured up to about 7 centimeters in length. Pretty tiny compared to the other giants on this list. Opabinia had 5 eyes and a nozzle-like proboscis at the front of its body, which is likely used to grab prey from the sea floor. Opabinia is an important animal in the study of early life on Earth because it belongs to a group of animals known as arthropods. Arthropods are a diverse group of animals that includes things like insects, spiders, and crustaceans. Opabinia is unique among arthropods because of its unusual body plan and its feeding habits. They likely fed on small invertebrates and other small animals on the sea floor. Its proboscis may have been used to probe the sediment for prey, and its 5 eyes likely helped it to locate prey in low light conditions. These guys are known from fossil remains found in the Burgess Shale Formation in British Columbia, right here in Canada. The Burgess Shale is a world-famous fossil site that has yielded many important discoveries in the study of early life on Earth. Opabinia is just one of the many fascinating and bizarre creatures that lived during the Cambrian period. In our number 3 spot today, we have the Helicoprion. This animal existed somewhere around 250 million years ago, and while it looks more like a shark than anything else, scientists now know that it was actually a creature that is related more closely to chimeras, which are a fish that separated from the shark family about 400 million years ago. So why is this animal just so scary and terrible to look at? Well, that is due to the incredibly unsettling spiral saw formation of teeth that this creature had right on their lower jaw. Yeah. An orthodontist's dream, truly. It's also not like this creature was just born with this teeth that they had for the rest of their lives. No, of course not. They had teeth that could grow, and new teeth could even form. Imagine being in the ocean and you see a huge creature swim up to you that has 4 spiral saws for teeth. Yeah. No thanks. Never going swimming. In our number 2 spot today, we have Cephalaspis. Cephalaspis is an extinct fish that lived around 400 to 360 million years ago during the Devonian period. It has a flattened, armored head and a small, streamlined body that measured up to about 60 centimeters in length. These guys likely lived in freshwater environments and fed on small invertebrates and plankton. These guys had a bony plate on the top of their head that protected their brain and their sensory organs. This plate, known as was a cephalic shield, was shaped like a triangle and had 2 large openings for the eyes. These guys also had a pair of small paddle-shaped fins near the front of their body that they used for swimming. These guys are an important animal in the study of early fish evolution because it is one of the earliest known jawless fish. Jawless fish include modern-day lampreys and hagfish. They lack the jaws and paired fins that are found in most modern fish. These guys are known from their fossil remains that have been found in many parts of the world, including Europe, North America, and Asia. The discovery of these guys have helped scientists to better understand the early evolution of fish and the diversification of life during the Devonian period. And finally, in our number 1 spot today we have Anomalocaris. These guys are an extinct animal that lived around 500 million years ago during the Cambrian period, and they were a large predatory animal that measured up to a meter in length. These guys had a circular mouth surrounded by spiny plates, which it likely used to grasp and crush its prey. These guys are an important animal in the study of early life because they are one of the earliest known arthropods. These guys are unique among arthropods, however, because they have a very unusual body plan and also unusual feeding habits. They had a segmented body and a pair of large paddle-shaped appendages at the front that helped it swim through the oceans. Its circular mouth was lined with sharp teeth, and its spiny plates may have been used to grasp and manipulate their prey. These guys are known from fossil remains found in many parts of the world, including Canada, China, and Australia. They're kind of all over the place. The discovery of these guys has helped scientists to better understand the early evolution of arthropods and just, what was going on during the Cambrian period.